Okay, hear me out. All right. Playing retro games on a keyboard. No. What do you mean? No! If you clicked on this video, you should have a vague idea of what we're going to talk about, and maybe you were intrigued, maybe you were confused, maybe you have a crush on me and you click on every video I make just to see my supple flapping hands and velopharyngeal insufficiency, or maybe you're baffled that anyone would do this, let alone make an entire video trying to convince other people to do it. So I'll thank you in advance for giving me the chance to show you this, because I've been genuinely happy that I discovered this and I really like it. And I promise that if you give it a chance, maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't, but you will at the very least be glad you tried it. Probably. And who knows, maybe this will be the thing that's been missing from your life and will elevate your retro gaming hobby to unfathomable new heights. So what the heck am I even talking about, you ask? And my answer is, well, that's rude. You should find a nicer way to ask people questions. And also, I'm talking about playing retro games on a keyboard. I'm not talking about playing old computer games that were made for keyboards with a keyboard. No. That would make sense. And we're not here to make sense. I'm talking about playing console retro games with a keyboard. Are you still there? You haven't immediately clicked off the video when I said that? And I haven't ruined your day by suggesting such an absurd thing? Okay, all right. In that case, you're a likely candidate to enjoy this, so it's good you're still here. Otherwise, I'd be talking to myself, like I do all day, every day. And I know it's a weird idea because these games were designed for controllers and keyboards are not controllers. You can tell because you don't hold them in your hands like a controller. I mean, you can try, but it's not going to go well. Actually, this is kind of playable. maybe this needs to be the topic of a future video too. I mean, it's not such a weird idea because back in the day, this is how we played computer games. We didn't have controllers for our computers. Well, the rich nerds had joysticks or whatever, but most of us just played all these games with a keyboard. Racing games, platformers, RPGs, all with nothing but a keyboard. I grew up playing games like that on my computer, and I turned out fine, so it can't be that bad. I mean, computers have buttons, they have arrow keys which you can use to move in the game and navigate menus, and a plethora of other keys for other stuff. Like, why not, right? Well, there's lots of reasons why not. I know the reasons, don't worry. You don't need to tell me in the comments all the reasons you think this is a terrible idea or how much I suck at Magic the Gathering, but there's also reasons why this isn't just not a terrible idea, it's actually an amazing idea. Yeah, that's right. In the last couple years, I've leaned heavily into the emulation lifestyle, as you probably noticed. I'm just not excited by new PC and console hardware or games the way I used to be. And it's the dusty old games that have been calling to me. I mean, yeah, when these old games were made, they didn't know how to trigger dopamine hits in us every 4 seconds and tell us what a good boy we were for tapping X during the QuickTime event, but that's a good thing in my book. And since I've been going back and playing old computer games from the DOS and Amiga and Commodore 64 era, and having a heckin' time of my life, if I do say so myself, basically all of them played with a keyboard, or a mouse and a keyboard, and they play great. It's not like I'm playing Traffic Department 2192 and wishing I had a controller the whole time. The opposite is true, actually. I'm genuinely loving the game more specifically because of the novelty of playing an action game on a keyboard and the satisfaction of developing new muscle memory for a novel peripheral. But sometimes as I'm tinkering, setting up my front end or shaders or whatever, I need to try out a game from a different system like Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis or whatever. And here's the thing. Something magical happened. Some might even call it a retro miracle when the retro gods were smiling upon me. As I was testing these old console games, I'd fire them up and I'm often too lazy to find the Bluetooth controller and turn it on and connect it up, especially if I just need to play for a minute or two to test some emulation thing. So I'd use my keyboard to play the game just for a little bit to do what I needed, and then it clicked. Suddenly I realized that playing old console games with a keyboard makes them feel like old computer games. I can tell your mind is completely blown from hearing this. I'll give you a minute to recover. And now I'm going to show you how to do this, but I don't want to just tell you, oh, install an emulator on your computer and play a game with your keyboard, because that won't do. I mean, it might. If you want to do that, freaking go ahead. I can't stop you, even though I wish I could. But I want to get you set up for success. I want you to feel what I do when I'm playing 1944 or Final Fight or Dragon Warrior and I feel like I'm playing an old computer game. I want you to feel the same magic that drove me to make this video in the first place. If you have a computer, there's a 99.999994% chance that you have a keyboard already. But I highly recommend getting yourself a keyboard that has retro vibes for this. It is definitely worth it for the authenticity, and also having retro vibe keyboards is one of life's greatest pleasures. I wouldn't want you to miss out on that. My current favorite retro keyboard is the 8-bit DOE retro keyboard series. I have two of them. I have the NES style one and the Commodore 64 style one. I love them both equally, however the one that I use on my retro computer setup is the Commodore 64 version. I also got the numpad because lots of old PC games required numpad stuff. That's not required for this activity that we're doing today, but it's definitely worth considering if you're planning on getting this for old DOS games, or even if you just need a numpad for day-to-day stuff. However, I also have the NES Vibe keyboard and numpad. That's what I use on my filming desk to work and write, and I even use it for gaming. Sometimes I'll switch them back and forth though, just for novelty. And there's lots of other retro style keyboards out there, so pick one that you want to play retro games on. That's all that matters. I'll have a link for these ones here in the doodad below. This is not an activity that needs special PC hardware. Almost any computer will play old Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis or whatever games. One revelation that I had semi-recently is that having a mini PC that is a dedicated emulation machine kind of changes my relationship with it. I've shown off this entire setup before, so check out this video link below if you want the grand tour. I'm using the Ioneo AM01 mini PC, which I love for the retro vibes, but I also love that I have it set up as a dedicated emulation machine. I can press this remappable button on the keyboard here and boom, look at that. Booted up into my custom DOS box setup called Dweeb DOS, and now I'm in DOS and I use it like a DOS compooper. I also have videos on how to set this up, link below. However, I also have another button that opens up something else. This special front end that I have here is a program called RetroBat, which is like a Windows version of Batocera. I've made videos about RetroBat in the past, I'll link to one of those below. RetroBat is hands down the easiest way to get started with emulation on a Windows PC. It is a program that you can install, and it is a front end that's nice to look at and nice to navigate, and it automatically comes with emulators all pre-configured and ready to go, and it's easy to add your games and play your games without any mucking about. I love RetroBat so much. This is what I personally use for emulation on PC. And the best part about this is that it's all set up for you, including the keyboard control stuff. All you need to do is download RetroBat and install the program, add your ROM files to the ROMs directory, and that's it. The games will show up in RetroBat. You can navigate RetroBat with the keyboard, so the front end becomes part of the experience, especially with a retro feeling theme like the TechDweeb theme that I showed off in this recent video. Link below. You can go into your game systems and browse the games. They'll launch and work like magic, and your keyboard will work right away by default. However, there's a few things that I like to do right off the start to make the experience feel a little bit more complete. First, I like to scrape all the artwork for my games so the front end has nice pretty screenshots. And this is entirely optional. I like to use shaders to give it a CRT look. It's a personal preference thing, so don't bother with this if you're not into the shader look, but for me, playing with a CRT shader helps me suspend my disbelief and makes me feel like I'm playing a real retro computer game on a real CRT monitor. Something you'd be using on an actual old PC from the 80s or 90s. As you play the game, the controls are mapped to the keyboard. The default controls are pretty easy to figure out, and they're all listed on the RetroBat wiki if you need to see what they are. You can also rebind them if you want to do that, which is also shown how to do on the wiki. You can access the RetroArch menu by pressing F1. You can pause the emulation with the spacebar, and you can exit the game with the escape key. And I suggest that you enable the autosave function in RetroBat so it automatically saves your spot when you exit. Playing retro games with a keyboard. What kind of madman would ever suggest such a thing? I'm either a genius or a total dweeb. I'll leave that up to you, but I'm leaning towards genius personally. There's something that happens in my mind when it comes to retro PC games. They feel like a different category of game entirely from console games. Some of what makes old PC games great is that they're more complex experiences with different graphical styles and completely different control schemes from the console games. It's like a whole different world of retro games. But playing retro console games on a keyboard kind of tricks my brain into thinking that they're old computer games. And I'm not kidding, no word of a lie. The games feel like different games. Last month, I was playing Pirates Gold on the Sega Genesis for the Dusty Game Society. I was playing it on my retro handhelds and on an Android handheld to record gameplay. I was doing that all month long, but when I was working on the video, I needed more gameplay to be recorded, so I just pulled it up on my retro mini PC to play there, and I was so delighted that it felt like a different game. I was playing it with a keyboard, and it felt fresh and new, as if I was playing a different PC version of Pirates Gold, even though I obviously wasn't. It felt that way. As I was working on my emulation station theme, I kept getting distracted by firing up various arcade games just because trying all of these games that I've played a ton of in this new way was just like so interesting and novel. Actually, it was playing all these old arcade games and seeing how different they felt that inspired me to make this video and share it with you, rather than it being just some weird thing that I do in private, like most of the things that I do. Playing arcade beat-em-ups or shoot-em-ups or Michael Jackson-em-ups on a keyboard is like playing the PC ports of these games that we never got back in the day. It brings me back to the simpler days when this is actually how I played games, on a keyboard. And it makes console and arcade games feel nostalgic in a whole different new way. The icing on the cake was when I got into playing role-playing games like this. I love playing retro PC role-playing games on my retro computer setup. I've been working on some DOS content, trying to find all my favorite games that I want to share in some videos, and I've been really going bananas on the old PC role-playing games. It's like an entire lifetime of gaming backlog that I have there with these old Dungeons & Dragons games, Might and Magic, Ultima, so many franchises that I want to play through that I've been trying out. But one of the downsides of old PC role-playing games is that very often they have a freaking map of keys across the keyboard to do stuff. And each key does something different. So it's actually a barrier to fun on some of these old games because you have to keep a document of key functions open while you play. Console RPGs don't have that problem. They do everything complex through menus, so playing like Arcana on SNES via a keyboard makes it feel like I'm playing an old PC role-playing game, but with well thought out and convenient menus instead of a plethora of random buttons for random functions, all willy-nilly. Another example, I'm playing Great Greed for the Game Boy on my retro handheld, and even that is a hoot playing like this. You probably think I'm a dork. I mean, no probably about it. You definitely think I'm a dork. Probably. But playing Game Boy games like this feels like playing old computer games from the black and white PC era. My first computer had a Hercules graphics adapter and a black and white monitor. I would have loved playing games like Great Greed on that old PC back in the day. And this just feels like little TechDweeb is getting everything that he could have wanted. Everything except for a father who loved him. And that's it. That's all I really wanted to show you today. A bit of a strange thing. A strange concept to make a video about, I guess. And it's strange of you to watch it too. A bunch of weirdos we are, you and me. And it's fun to do for novelty, but also it's like play with what you have, you know? If you have an old laptop or a computer, you can play Mario. Pretend it's an old PC game and play it with your keyboard. Don't let anyone tell you what you can or can't do. Especially clicking the thumbs up button if you like the video. No one can tell you to do that. They can only ask you nicely. So please click the thumbs up button, please. And that's it from me for today. I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.